Artist Collective podcast this next one's about.
Aubrie Sellers, hello and welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
This is so exciting, and all the way from LA, so we're like 3 time zones apart.
Yes.
And I had trouble explaining that. Well, sorry, your manager had trouble explaining to me what time it was.
I kept getting stressed out like I was gonna, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of we sometimes have problems with that where we get times mixed up, and I kept thinking, I hope that I'm getting on here at the right time.
Oh, we got it sorted in the end. We got it sorted. So I'm so delighted to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining the podcast. So this, if you're not aware, this is a podcast where I interview songwriters and we talk about their songs and we talk about their careers. And it's generally just a way for me to meet artists and have fun. So thank you for joining. But I'm so excited to talk about your album, Far From Home. So it came out in February of this year. And obviously we all know what happened in March. So you were scheduled to go on, I think it was 3 different tours with 3 major artists. All of it got cancelled. And so now we've had to pivot, and you've got a new EP that's coming out fully in August, and a couple of singles. So maybe let's just sort of start with COVID and how that's kind of affected you before we kind of get into the album and everything else that's sort of come out of that.
For sure. I mean, my record came out on February 7th, and I was not expecting any of this to happen, as no one was. And so, it's been a real readjustment period. Like you said, I was planning right now I would be on tour, so, I've been getting some stuff set up at my house now because I think I'm starting to realize more and more. I kind of knew that we weren't going to be touring for a while, but I think as time progresses, the reality hits me a little more that, okay, if we're not touring, I have to be doing something else. I have to be doing something else. So I actually I sold an old camera and ordered a new one, and, have some lights and stuff that I'm getting set up. And so I'm just kind of readjusting and trying to figure out, what I can do, especially video wise, so I can have that kind of face-to-face connection with people that, it can't come close to being on the road, but it's a different thing. And I think it's a good way to connect. And even stuff like this is really great to be doing. So yeah, it's just been a readjustment period and figuring out, actually, I'm doing some classes, finishing my degree, and a bunch of other random stuff like that, just trying to fill up my time. And I'm actually feel very busy. So, so that's good. But, I do wish we were out playing this record live for people.
I know. Do you feel this sort of pressure to create by any chance? Is that because like a lot of people are going, okay, well, we're in lockdown and we've got all this time to create, and are you feeling that, or is that something that's sort of within your circle?
I think for me, since I just put a record out, I don't feel that as strongly. I feel more like, how can I get this record? How can I share this record with people, since I was going to be sharing it on the road. So I think my head has been more, how can I bring this music that I've made to people? But we did release these covers that we're doing as an EP, because it feels like the more I'm able to do that right now and put out new music and connect with people, the better, just because of the way things are. And so I have been creating a little bit. I've been singing on some other people's stuff, and working on some demos and kind of getting in the headspace of writing for a new record and all that, and creating a little more. I think that's going to probably happen more towards the end of the year for me. Right now, I'm just kind of still working on maybe putting some shows together for this album virtually, since we didn't get to have our real ones.
You should. I would love to join that. I think that would be a lot of fun. And so you were saying about this EP that you're about to release, and you've got a number of different cover songs on it. So what was the impetus behind doing the cover songs, and how did you choose them?
Yeah, these are just, it's very simply songs that I've loved forever, one of which is coming out next week that I haven't announced it yet, but I sang it on a show that I did for Lightning 100 Nashville one time, and just have really loved the song forever. Wicked Game, which came out last week. Everyone loves that song, and I know a lot of people cover it, but it's just truly one of the best and one of my favorite songs. And so for me, it was just, we went in the studio, Ethan and I produced this together, and this is the first thing that we had produced together. He played on Far From Home, my record, but we haven't produced anything together before this. And we really just wanted to go in. It was kind of a hard time for us in life, and it was just a way for us to go have fun and record songs that we loved and kind of remember the joy of being in the studio. And making music. So for us, it was just really a labor of love. And I didn't know if we would release it or anything like that. We had no kind of preconceived notions of what we were going to do or what we were going to do with it. So that's kind of the story behind it. It was just us loving these songs and music and wanting to do it for fun. And then we kind of sat on it for a minute, and this seemed like the perfect time to put it out there.
Yeah, it's a good. Well, absolutely, it's a great time, and I really enjoyed hearing Wicked Game. I know that you have a single out next week, and I'm excited to hear what you've done with it and sort of the way that you reimagine something. It's quite fun, but I mean, you're right. It's a great song, and you still sort of kept the sort of etherealness, if that's a word, of the song, but you've definitely kind of made it your own. And obviously, like being a female singer, that will change it naturally, but you have absolutely made it your own. So I love it. I was listening to it and I was like, oh yes, I like that.
I love taking songs like that and retranslating them. It's like one of my, I get to do that on the road a lot. And so I really love doing that. And it's extra fun to do it in the studio when you can really focus on the production.
Mm-hmm. Is there a kind of go-to cover that you do for some of your shows just to kind of throw people off, like in the middle?
For a long time, I did a Luxury Liner. Well, Emmylou Harris is the version that I know and love, but it was Graham Parsons wrote it, but I did that for a long time in my shows. And I've done some Chuck Berry. I played some Chuck Berry at Bonnaroo. I love Chuck Berry. And then, so we did a Dwight Yoakam cover that I put out a video of, and that's going to be the last song on the EP, but it when the whole EP comes out. But anyway, we'd never released it before. We had just done a video for it, and we played that one a lot live too. So there's a lot. I always have at least one in my set.
Mm-hmm. And so I think like is that when you're going to a concert and just to see how someone reimagines something, it's just like it just sort of retunes you back in. If you were not that you would have tuned out, but it just sort of jolts you back into something.
Especially when it's and especially when you're playing for people that maybe don't know you. It's like something familiar for people to hear, and kind of if they know the song and they hear you doing it, now they get a better sense, I think, of who you are as well and how you translated the song.
So yeah, it's a shame because you were gonna play with Tanya Tucker, so it was CMT's Next Women of Country, and that was going to be live in New York at Town Hall, and I had tickets. So, but hopefully next year. I know that it's been rescheduled, so I'm crossing my fingers for that.
I know. We only got to do one together, and then we had a bunch of other ones that didn't happen. So I can't wait to do it. And at least we got to do one. I said that, like, at least I got to do one.
Oh, that's right. Where was that? Was that one Madison Square Garden?
We did. No, the one we did was at Town Hall, but it was on the day that my record came out. And Brandy Clark played it as well. So that's right. The three of us. And then I was supposed to play more dates separately with Brandy later. So yeah, there were a lot of great shows that. I know, but hopefully next year or the next year.
It'll happen. You can do some live shows and keep people entertained until then.
Yeah.
But let's talk about your album. So this is your second album, Far From Home, and it followed up from New City Blues. And so it's funny because I just got in the mail my copy of American Songwriter.
Yay.
And there's a lovely 2-page spread of Aubrie Sellers. So I got to cheat and someone else did my homework for me.
Yeah.
But I was reading that, so after New City Blues, there was something of a bidding war for you from the major labels in Nashville, and you made a decision to walk away from those and to, make the music that you wanted to make for people that would get it.
Yeah, so, I ended up signing, so I kind of started my career when I made New City Blues. I had grown up around the music industry and I knew a little bit of how it worked, and I knew that my creative freedom was really important to me, and I knew that the kind of music I make wasn't going to directly plug into the kind of Nashville machine the way it is set up, and so it was always my intention to, if I could, create the music first, to do that before I go to a label or go have anyone kind of be in my head or be part of that creative process. And then we put it out, and like you said, people kind of latched onto it a little bit, and I ended up signing with Warner Brothers, but everything that, as much as you can know about the way the music industry works, and even if you grew up around it, it's kind of the same old story. I mean, it's like there's so many external factors that you can't control, even if you're informed about what's happening. And I think for me, it just really ended up being a choice between, do I want to put this record out, Far From Home, that I made and feel so attached to and is a true expression of me, or do I want to spend 5 years trying to chase something that somebody else wants me to do? And for me, it was like, no question. I mean, um, I know I wouldn't be happy making anything that wasn't a true representation of myself. So yeah, it was a kind of difficult time, but not necessarily a difficult decision to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, it is walking away from opportunity way, but at the end of the day, it's like, what opportunity? You know, the opportunity to not be yourself. You know,
Right.
so
And even having walked away from that, you're still, got the tour with Tanya Tucker and like 2 other major artists. So, what were you really losing?
it feels good to have people recognize the music or connect with it. I mean, but yeah, I think it's really important, and it has always been really important to me to be true to myself. And I think I wouldn't be happy doing anything else. And I don't think people would be able to connect with me trying to do anything else, because it wouldn't be authentic, you know?
Mm-hmm. And you talk about growing up in the music industry. Were you like an on tour kind of child, or so? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I was. My mom homeschooled me on the road, so I was on the road a lot. And even before she got a record deal, my dad played in Ricky Skaggs' band and Vince Gill's band, and so I'd been around it since birth. And my dad had been in a gospel group with his family, so music goes back generations.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather on my mom's side was a country DJ and in his hometown, so we are just surrounded by music. But yeah, I was on the road. My mom homeschooled me, and so I really absorbed that. And a lot of people say we sound vocally similar, even though our music is different, which is true. Just because I'm not only are we blood, but I listen to her sing more than anyone else. I heard it all the time, and so it's just natural.
Yep.
So yeah, I grew up on the road, and it's really interesting because as much as I sang background a little bit with her, and I sang on other people's records a lot and all that kind of stuff. So I contributed a lot to other people's music. But when it came time for me to make my own and tour my own, it was actually really challenging for me. It's a lot different to kind of step in the forefront and be yourself and be putting your own music out there. So as much as you may think I was prepared, maybe in some ways, but not in all.
And your stepdad produced your album, right?
Yeah.
So was that how was that sort of? Because I imagine that might be like learning to drive with your dad, like your parent. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So how was that sort of in the studio?
Yeah, I got to, be in the studio a lot and see how that part of the process worked a lot. So I felt fairly comfortable with that part of it, more so than being on stage, I would say. And we co-produced Far From Home together. So, the thing I love about Frank as a producer, because I say, I didn't pick him because he was family. I truly picked him because I love the records he makes on other artists. And the reason I love them so much is because, a lot of producers are incredible, but you can hear so much of them in the music that sometimes, it sounds like their project instead of the artist project, which can be great, and it can be great music, but that's not what I wanted for at least my debut album. I wanted to really find my sound and be distinctly myself. And so I think he makes great records, but he's able to, with everyone he works with, I feel like really bring out their specific artistry. And so, because of that, yeah, I've learned a ton from him, watching him work with other artists in the studio as well.
Yeah, he Frank Liddell. Is it Liddell or Liddell? Liddell, thank you. I didn't realize that he produced Bear Creek for Brandi Carlile, and that's actually been one of my favorite albums of all time.
Oh, really?
And I didn't realize that was Frank Liddell, and I was like, oh, Frank Liddell, oh, cool. So fancy that. Yeah, but I mean, like the sound on that was awesome, but it was so interesting, kind of listening to your album, Far From Home, and there were like, obviously you've got so many different influences going on, and it's such a broad album genre-wise, which I love about it. But there's like, for me, there was a couple of I think it was, which one was it? I think it was Going Places gave me like a sort of Blue Sand, Alison Krauss, Robert Plant vibe, which is T-Bone. So I was like, I loved hearing that, and it sort of got that, I don't know, there's like a
That's
space.
one of my favorite records ever.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it is good.
No joke, one of my favorites ever. I love that record. I love the atmosphere of it. And when I went to make this record, we recorded at a place called Sonic Ranch, which is outside of El Paso, and it definitely had that kind of desert vibe to it, which is I had been inspired by a lot of like Quentin Tarantino soundtracks and things leading into this record, and so my cat is meowing, and I'm sorry if you can hear her.
I can't hear it.
Maybe if I let her in, she'll stop.
Sure. We haven't had a cat on the show before.
Oh my god. She wants me to play with her. Anyway, sorry.
That's fine.
Okay, so so
it's usually my dogs, don't worry about it.
Okay. So unprofessional, but she won't shut up. So we recorded in El Paso, and I've been listening to a lot of Quentin Tarantino soundtracks and just that kind of vibe and the Ventures in Space record and stuff like that. And so Going Places was for me kind of like the sonic mark of the record and kind of the middle of it, I guess, or the overall vibe sonically.
Mm-hmm. And actually, I know that you work. Sorry, I'm going off in various different tangents for these questions, but I know that you do a lot of work for some nonprofits, and one of them is Girls to the Moon. Can I ask you about that nonprofit? And also, because I thought Going Places with its sort of space thing was that.
Yeah,
was there anything that was
related
anything
about space? Girls to the Moon is an organization that was based in Nashville, and they do these things called, I think they called them conferences for girls. I can't remember the exact age group, 7 to 14 maybe. And they just have all these incredible speakers and workshops for young girls to kind of empower them, train them in different areas. And, I'm trying to think of some of the speakers they had, but anyway, there will be one weekend a year where they did this. And then they would also do events throughout the year and get these girls together and just kind of empower them. So, I did some streams for them and just kind of, wrote some stuff for their website, their blog, and just, they're a great organization. In general, I love to support organizations that lift up women and young girls. And so that's also why I love Imagination Library, because I'm hugely passionate about reading. And that's a way to kind of reach out to young people and instill that love of reading and also give them free books to read. So, through my, I have a book club, book Instagram called Biblioclique, and through that we raised some money for Imagination Library as well. And so that's stuff I just like to be involved in when I can and promote the things that I think are important.
That's the Imagination Library is Dolly Parton's Imagination Library.
Mm-hmm.
Totally, she's great. Sorry, let's go back to the album. I went off on the tangent there. There's so many great tracks on that album, but one of them is one that you recorded with Steve Earle, My Love Will Not Change. So tell me, how did that collaboration with Steve Earle come around?
Yeah, so the song, it's the only song on the record that I didn't write. I had been a big fan of the Del McCoury version of the song. I'm a huge bluegrass fan, and so I loved his version of it. It was written by Sean Camp and Billy Burnett, and when it came time to make this record, I had been kind of wanting to do that. I had a kind of vision for how I wanted it to sound if I cut it, and thought we should try it for the record. And Steve Earle has been a huge inspiration to me from his early records to now. And when we recorded that song and kind of it did come out in the way that I had intended it to, I thought, who else could sing on this but him? Truly, he's perfect for it. I didn't expect him to actually do it, but I did reach out to a friend and say, can you just ask, can you just send him the song? And then he agreed, and I was very shocked. And we just got an Americana nomination for the song, and I'm so excited about that. So hopefully we get to celebrate together in person, because he recorded his part in New York, and I recorded mine in El Paso. So I hope we get to come together at some point.
That's amazing, and congratulations. That's wonderful. I very much hope that you win that. It's very deserving. Well, in fact, so I asked if you would play a song tonight, and you very kindly offered to play that song.
Yeah.
So would you?
Ready?
Yeah. Is your cat ready?
Yeah.
Is that Ethan in the wing there?
Lainey? Yeah, it's Ethan, not my cat. You ready, Lainey? She's probably gonna go wild.
Is your cat called Lady?
Lainey.
Lainey. Got it. My dog is called Lady. That's why I was like, that would be funny.
Lady and Lainey.
Mm-hmm.
I have another cat. They're sisters, Luna. She might make an appearance too.
Okay.
The reason that she came up here was because we're both in here. All right, you ready?
All right.
Ready?
Yeah. Well, seasons come, seasons go, and the reason you left, guess I'll never know. There will be others, yes, I know it's true, but they won't do you like I did for you. My love will not change, my love will not change. It just rolls like a river to the sea of your name. My love will not change, my love will not change. It's as steady as the rhythm of the pouring rain, strong as the wind across the mountain top. Hey, my love is moving and it just won't stop. I turned you loose, honey, I let you fly. All I can do is hang my head and cry. My love will not change, my love will not change. It just rolls like a river to the sea of your name. My love will not change, my love will not change. It's as steady as the rhythm of the pouring rain. My love will not change, my love will not change. It just rolls like a river to the sea of your name. My love will not change, my love will not change. It's as steady as the rhythm of the pouring rain. My love.
Hey,
Yay, Ethan!
that was awesome. Well done, Ethan. Nice to see you at the back there. Big shout out to him. I love his
She said,
guitar
well,
work. He's great.
You can hear.
Oh yeah, that's true. You can just kind of see me waving like a crazy person. Oh, that was beautiful. I love that. Thank you. I was like, obviously having only heard it with Steve Earle, I was like, oh, what's this going to sound like without Steve Earle? But
Yeah.
it's brilliant. It's a great song.
I've gotten so used to doing it by myself. I hope we get to do it together.
Yeah. So bringing it back just for a moment to your book club. So how do you meet? What is, if people want to get involved with your book club, how do they do that?
Yeah, it's just Instagram right now, but we've got some stuff in the works we're very excited about. But yeah, go on Instagram, Biblioclique, CLIQUE.
I think I
one
have
word
it correctly written on the bottom.
Oh, you do? Yes. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, so we're just on Instagram, and right now we just share books that we're reading. And we only share the ones that we like. We don't give bad reviews. So everything on there is stuff we endorse.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we've had a really good time. So I guess I didn't even mention who I run it with. My friend Brittany Kennel, who's also a musician. We met in Nashville, and she now has moved back to Canada. She lives in Montreal, but we do it together. So it's really fun, and we have some fun things that we're going to do coming up too. So we're huge readers. We love it.
Me too. So do you guys kind of meet online and do like a virtual thing similar to this? Or is that
So
coming?
no, we don't do live streams. Right now we just post. We have done some in the past, and we actually for a little while had a like a kind of online chat social media platform that was its own. But we transitioned away from that and are just doing the Instagram right now while we transition to some new things that we're going to do.
New things. Okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I love hearing about new things.
Yeah.
And so your new EP comes out August 7th.
Yes.
So how many songs are on the new EP?
3. It's just 3 songs, 3 covers of songs that I love. And yeah, they're just songs that, we played one of them is Dwight Yoakam, which we had never released. It's 1,000 Miles from Nowhere. We had put a video of it out, but we've never actually released the track. So that's one of the songs on there. And then Wicked Game came out last week. But yeah, we have one more coming out next week before the whole EP comes out. And yeah, we just had a really fun time doing them. And you kind of asked me earlier if I'd been creating, and I feel like putting these out and kind of seeing people's reaction has made me really excited to make more stuff with Ethan in the future. So
is it so when you're kind of in lockdown and feeling, as we all do, sort of quite isolated, is sort of putting something out a nice way to feel connected, and then it drives you to create more?
For sure, for me. Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, as a creative person, I'm always driven to create, probably no matter what. But for me, the whole point of doing it is connecting with people, and so when I get to actually have that connection and actually put that music out and see people listening to it and reacting to it, and especially songs that you wrote about things that are happening to you in your life and emotional things you've been through that other people might relate to, I really drive off of that connection. And like we were talking about earlier, since we don't get to play shows and be out in public, it felt like a really great time to do that and be able to connect even more. So even though we put out the record just in February, this is just kind of an extra bonus and a fun thing to be able to connect with people on.
And the title, Far From Home, I mean, for some people that is very literal right now. So where did that title come from in terms of the song, and where did you pick that particular song to be the title?
Yeah, for me, when I was writing that record, not only was I physically far from home for the first time as a solo artist touring full time, I mean, for like 3 years straight, just constantly touring. So there was that I had to adjust to and figure out for the first time and navigate. And then also, far from home for me symbolizes kind of finding myself in that process. So both physically I'm gone, but also I'm trying to figure out, really where I land and live in the world, especially in music. But even as a person growing up, transitioning from, kind of being a person who just left college and was writing songs to like touring full time and being an artist, so and then navigating all those business things we talked about earlier, and just things that I didn't have experience with. And so for me, Far From Home just kind of embodies that feeling of finding yourself in the world. And I don't know if finding yourself, people use that term all the time. I don't think that's a real thing that you find yourself, but I feel like it's a continuous process. But it does feel like that was a huge step. That time in my life was kind of a huge change, a period of change and a step forward. And that's what this record is about.
And in terms of you moving to LA and pursuing an acting career as well, was that sort of around the same time as well?
So yeah, it was a little bit after, it was before this record came out. But yeah, I was living around that time as well. And acting is something that I've been doing since I was a little girl, actually. No one really knew because Nashville's not a place where you can do that much, but it's becoming more so, especially since they had a famous TV show there. But
did they? What was that called? I forget.
Nashville. That's when Nashville got hot, by the way.
Oh,
when
I know.
People saw that
Nashville,
show and they were like,
yeah.
Nashville's the place to be.
For sure. And then like the Bluebird is just sold out forever.
Exactly. So yeah, but I had been acting since I was young. I'd been taking classes there with a few classes that they did have there. And then I came out here when I was a teenager to go to acting school. So it's something that I've loved to do forever. I actually feel like when I was younger, music and that felt like equal parts me, because one, music was it was in my blood, and everyone in my family did it, and it's just something that I can't live without. And then acting was kind of my other outlet that was just mine, and I feel like that's important to have as a kid too. So and I'm very introverted as well, so a lot of the time it's easier for me to get on stage as an actor because you're under the kind of cover of your character.
Yep, I feel that. It's funny. I hate acting. terrible at it. Love songwriting, but I sort of understand, going on stage and you're sort of performing on stage quite literally as your sort of performer self. But I always, for me, in terms of songwriting, it was a way to express something that I was sort of not very good at expressing as a person. And I think, that was maybe why I struggled with the acting side of it, because it's just sort of having to delve into something and then put that on. I don't know. I could never really sort of tap into it.
Yeah.
But I don't need to. I'm glad you can.
Yeah. For me, it's like in the same way that you just described songwriting being kind of cathartic, it's the same thing for both songwriting for me and for acting. I think it's like being able to utilize those emotions that you're having. I have a lot of them. I'm a very sensitive person. I need 2 outlets. One's not enough.
Well, creative people, there's many outlets. I was often surprised to find that, there was a favorite artist of mine. It turned out, she also turned out to be a really great artist, actual fine artist. And I was like, oh, fancy that. And then now I'm like, that makes complete sense.
Yeah, I definitely don't have that gift. I can tell you that. I can't draw a straight line. I'm terrible at drawing or painting or anything like that.
Same. All right. So, Aubrie, this has been so much fun, and I'm really looking forward to your album coming out and your book club thing that's sort of on the horizon that I don't know enough about to lay any secrets on the line. And hopefully your tour next year will be back on, and I can see you live, which will be exciting.
Yes, that would be so great. Yes, please let me know if you're going to come, because I want to hang out.
I will be there with my Aubrie Sellers t-shirt on at the front.
Yay!
Yes, you will. Yeah, I'm always that person. So
that's awesome. I love that.
Awesome. Well, Aubrie Sellers, thank you so much. If you want to find Aubrie Sellers, she is at Aubrie Sellers. And don't forget to follow the book club at Biblioclique. And that's how I say clique, but click. All right, Aubrie, we'll see you later.